Well, it's good to see you all today. We're going to do Matthew chapter 8. A lot of stories there. Hopefully we make it through them. So who will read for us Matthew 8, 1 through 3?
Jesus heals a man with leprosy. When Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately he was cleaned of his leprosy. Then Jesus said to him, "See that you don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priests and offer the gift Moses commanded as a testimony to them."
When I was chaplain and we were in Iraq, first Gulf War, there was a soldier, I think he was originally from Guam, and he had a big white patch on his leg, and turned out that was leprosy. And the commander was sort of worried about that. He wanted to talk to the doctor, and he wanted to talk to me. And the doctor, gave the medical explanations. The truth is that nowadays leprosy is not as highly contagious as it was back in the biblical times, and it can virtually be healed if it's not gotten too far along. And but the problem was, and what he wanted to talk to me about was the emotional situation, because people are as afraid of it as they were in Jesus' time, because they don't have all that up-to-date, medical information, and they were scared that this young man was going to be ostracized or isolated, or that fear was going to spread amongst the troops. And so the doctor and I agreed that we should have him medevac to Tripler Army Medical Center in Hawaii, which was the premier treatment center for leprosy. And he left within a few days. And as far as I know, he got well. So that was a good thing. Can you show me the first slide there? Here's the thing. Leprosy, a lot of times when you see pictures of lepers, it's late stage. Early on, it can look like almost any sort of skin disease. It might look like even an allergic reaction. So it's not easy to diagnose. Although nowadays there's, swabs they can do and tests. But back in the day when they had to eyeball it, it would have been difficult. And even back then, the emotional reaction was high. But even back then, the chances of leprosy spreading through a simple casual touch was pretty small. You had to have more extensive touching. You had to be in pretty close relationship with the person who had it. Leprosy is now called Hansen's disease, from the doctor who, gave it the more details and identified the virus that's actually behind it. Globally, there's about 200,000 cases of leprosy. The United States, and most of them are in Florida, has 200 cases of leprosy. In biblical times, the diagnosis was made by the priests, and their guidance came from the book of Leviticus. You can look there, chapters 13 and 14. And it gives 13 gives you the what to look for, gives you the diagnostics, and 14 gives you the treatment, which consisted largely of a whole bunch of washing, which in reality didn't do anything, but that was what they thought at the time. The real bad thing was, and this is, any of you have, has anybody got a Bible with them? Yeah, would you read for us Leviticus 13:45 and 46? Leviticus 13:45 and 46.
And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip and shall cry, unclean, unclean. All the days wherein the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled. He is unclean. He shall dwell alone without the camp until his habitation be.
So the problem was, if you were diagnosed, is you had to live outside the camp. You had to be separated from everybody else. Furthermore, as you traveled about, you had to holler out, unclean, unclean, warning people that you were going to come by so they could avoid you, because they thought, again, it was highly contagious. So here's the thing. There's a twofold problem. One is, in the theology of the day, there were two causes for illness: sin and demon possession. So that meant that whoever had leprosy was either demon possessed or was a terrible sinner. So they were isolated from God and the rest of their religion. Secondly, they were socially isolated. They had to live away from everybody. Pretty tough, pretty tough. You know, first of all, you're sick. You're not feeling well. And then these other two conditions are coming about. How about Matthew 8, 5 through, oh, wait a minute now. There's one thing I wanted to ask you about. Why would Jesus say, don't tell anybody? What's that?
He'd be swamped with people that wanted to be healed, and he didn't want the Pharisees and the Sadducees, because they were sad, you see. And so he didn't want them to come and find him.
So he didn't want to pick a fight with the Pharisees and Sadducees?
The people,
Okay.
the people
Yeah.
that wanted to crucify him. And he was trying to keep it quiet.
Would it be that the people would chastise him for having touched this man?
That's a nice theory, too.
Then they wouldn't want him
Don't
to be
tell,
around me?
because I had already touched this guy, and then he would end up being isolated and in trouble, yeah. And then what was the other one? Crow, you said it. What? You get such big crowds wanting to get fixed that you couldn't probably even move about. Now, here's the thing. What does the text say? Does the text tell us why Jesus said, don't tell anybody? No. There you go.
No.
So when that eloquent preacher gets up and says to you, here's why he did this, he's making it up, folks. Because he doesn't know, because it ain't in the text. We can speculate about it. All of your theories are good theories, but they're just that, theories. It's not in the text. We don't know, ultimately, why he said, don't tell anybody. Okay, well, let's move ahead. Was somebody want to read 5 to 13?
The faith of the centurion. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home, paralyzed, suffering terribly. Jesus said to him, "Shall I come and heal him?" The centurion replied, "Lord, I do not deserve to have you under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. I tell that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel of such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown aside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Then Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, let it be done as you believed it would." And his servant was healed at that moment.
So centurion, who would that be? A Roman military officer, right? I think probably the American military equivalent would be either a company commander or a platoon leader, either a lieutenant or a captain. It would be, again, in that time, it would be command of about 100 soldiers. We can learn from a parallel passage, which is Luke chapter 7, that this Roman military officer was somewhat of an unusual officer because he was of the mind of win their hearts and minds. He had, in one of the villages, restored their synagogue. He'd had his troops go to work on it and rebuilt it. So, at least in the Luke story, it's the people who come to Jesus and say, "You need to fix things for this guy because he's been really good to us." That's in the Luke story. It's not in this story, but it's in the Luke story. The other thing is, in that day and age, this guy that was his servant, that could mean that he was like a private in the Roman army, or it could mean he was a slave. In either case, and some of us are prior military would know this, the boss might have said, "Well, who cares? He's just a private, or just a slave. Why would I worry about him being sick? Get another one, you know?" But the guy has some kind of compassion in his heart, and he's a guy of a different order. So we got to recognize that. I think the other thing that happens here is a theological thing, and Jesus is pointing this out when he says, well, you can debate faith from the view of the scribes and Pharisees, which would be a somewhat pedagogical debate or a theoretical debate or a theological debate. But in the centurion, we get a practical definition. He said, here's what faith looks like. No words, action. And again, I think, the description that's given here where he says, I say to this one, go, and he goes, and come, and he comes. And I'm just wondering, like, for instance, Keith, I know you're a prior military guy. When the boss told you to go, did you go? Yes, sir. Yeah, you did. Yeah. So that this practical definition, particularly for anybody who has that kind of military background, makes absolute sense. That, you're not questioned. This is the way it's going to be. So it kind of made sense to me. Wondered if any of you had some thoughts to share. You don't have that doggone King James version still open, do you?
All the time. The part that I like is the faith that the centurion showed. He didn't expect or want or need Jesus to come and do the healing. He said, you just say the word. That requires a little higher level of faith, that action word of faith. On the centurion's point, that I give him a lot of kudos for.
Yeah, I think it's like a precursor to the remote work that became possible during COVID. It's like faith healing had to be done in person, but then you learned, well, you can do it remotely. Just get a video link.
Well, the other thing is he was pretty humble. For a Roman centurion, you would think they'd be proud and boastful and look at me, I'm the head of all these men. But what he said was, I don't deserve for you to come to me. I'm not worthy. So don't come to my house. And that kind of struck me too as being a little bit unusual.
I agree, yeah. But one of the things that's revolutionary here is the fact that this is a Roman. He's a Gentile. And so, and Jesus is making the point that the Jews who are supposed to be at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are rejecting him and his healing, and here's a Gentile embracing it. That's a key point for us to get.
Jesus heals many. When Jesus came into Peter's house, he saw Peter's mother-in-law lying in bed with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she got up and began to wait on him. When evening came, many who were demon-possessed were brought to him, and he drove out the spirits with a word and healed all the sick. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. He took up our infirmities and bore our diseases.
Of course, now we all know, fellows around the table all know, there would be some fellows that wouldn't ask for their mother-in-law to be healed at all. Furthermore, that if she was healed, you would be the last person she'd ever get up and wait on. Yeah, so some unique things about the story from the get-go here. And then we're learning this picture that Jesus has authority in the Gentile world. He has authority over illness, because that's this lady's illness. And even though I agree that in some of the stories, people are healed because of their faith, there's no mention of that here. She's healed. She didn't ask to be healed. In fact, there's no report there of, anybody asking that she get healed, but she's healed. So we don't know, you can assume that there would be some faith around, but we don't know from the text. Okay, let's look at 18 to 22.
The cost of following Jesus. When Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. Then a teacher of the law came to him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." Another disciple said to him, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. But Jesus told him, Follow me, and let the dead bury their own dead.
So what does it cost you to be a Christian? What does it cost you? Everything? Like, give me some specifics.
It doesn't cost us as much as it does Christians in other countries who have to hide and are threatened with their lives. So I would say not very much.
It can cost you your life depending upon where you are and the situation.
Yeah.
So you sacrifice everything. Or maybe it's just to stay with them, again, hold a hand and pray. Or maybe you have to sell whatever it is to bandage up wounds and to take care of someone, such as the Good Samaritan.
Okay.
So it depends upon the situation.
But what about your situation?
My
You.
situation?
How much does it cost you personally to be a Christian? You personally.
So far, it hasn't cost me anything.
It can cause family disturbance because sometimes family disagrees with your Christianity. And in my case, I try to live it and not preach it because I know I'm going to get shut down anytime I try to talk about it. So I just try to live a good example, and because I don't understand why some in my family seem to be non-believers.
Thank you.
We're to give up everything and follow him, right?
Yeah.
Follow him. He told us, give up everything and follow him. And I think that most all of us probably do that to the best of our ability. Sometimes it's not easy to follow, but we must do it. And I feel like actions speak louder than words. And I know when we testify or give our testimony to others, it's not just the words, they're watching our actions. And I don't know, if all of us lived the way Jesus wanted us to, wouldn't it be a peaceful world? And we're just not, we're not there, and we never will be there. But I know I'm not perfect. None of us are. He was the only one that was ever perfect. But to the best of our ability, I think just follow his teachings, and it will keep us out of trouble.
Thank you. Crow, one year you did my taxes. How much did it cost me that year to be a Christian?
I don't remember.
Well, I don't give 10%, so it's closer to 5, I think. But
Whatever it was, it's over.
yeah, it's probably 7,000 or 8,000 a year. It's costing me, you know. Hey, you could go back to my years in the military. I don't know if I would have joined the military if I hadn't called to be a chaplain. That was a pretty costly run, to tell you the truth. Yeah. Right now, I got two nice cars and nice house. Mike lets me come over and act like I know what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know. Cost ain't real high. You know, one of my last assignments was down in San Antonio, Texas, and I would go to, it was called Rolling Hills United Methodist Church. And one Sunday morning, I noticed we Methodists, you go through the parking lot, Mercedes and Toyotas and nice cars. We Methodists, we got nice cars. We live in pretty nice homes, you know, so we're a darn long ways from giving up everything. And most of the time, I'm not giving it till it hurts, really. Crow and I was talking about how the last church he and I were in together was at Collister, there's a whole African congregation there. And a lot of them still living in poverty. And good lesson for us. But yeah, we're not even close. Not even close. Well, I don't say all that to condemn anybody because I include myself in this. But when Jesus talks about the cost of discipleship, we're a long ways from it, you know. Let's go to Jesus calming the storm, 23 to 27. Who will read that for us?
Jesus calms the storm. Then he got into the boat, and his disciples followed him. Suddenly, a furious storm came on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him up, saying, "Lord, save us, we're going down." He replied, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him."
Thank you. Mr. Walker, would you bring up the map? There we go, the Sea of Galilee. Sea of Galilee's 13 miles long and about 8 miles wide. Why don't you get the next one? It's way up north in Israel. You know, you got Dead Sea down in the south, Jordan River in between. Sea of Galilee, they call it, the Israelis call it Lake Gennesaret. So they don't call it Sea of Galilee anymore. It has a surface area of about 64 square miles. If you were looking for something similar here in Idaho, you'd look at Bear Lake, you know, down on the Utah-Idaho border. That's about as close as we could come. But we got any number of lakes here in Idaho that have similar geography, where it's in a rift valley. And my wife and I have a little cabin on Lake Cascade, you know, poor man's McCall. And in the afternoons, the wind can come up there real good. In fact, it was, I think, 3 years ago on 4th of July, there was a late evening storm, and we were out in our boat. We'd watched the fireworks, and the waves were breaking over the bow of my boat. I thought we were going to get swamped, and grandkids were sure happy to see the shore when we finally made it in. But the Sea of Galilee is subject to the same kind of thing, where afternoon wind can come up, and also where a thunderstorm can come over the hills and drop in on you really quick. And of course, back then, there's no warning of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that probably explains, you know, what happened there. And it wouldn't have, in one sense, wouldn't have been so unusual. But the thing we need to capture from this story is we're building this momentum. Jesus has authority over illness. Jesus has authority even with Gentiles. Jesus has authority with nature. Even the waves and the seas obey him. So we're building this momentum, this view of his authority as the Son of God and the Son of Man.
So I'm an old sailor man, U.S. Navy.
Oh, yeah. Never scared of a storm. Yeah, no big deal.
Well, that's true. The point of the calm, when it became, completely calm, you got to keep in mind that back in those days, they didn't have motors They used sails. So I always had to back in my mind, from one problem to another, because when it's completely calm, you're not going anywhere, ever, until you get any kind of wind. So I always kind of have this dichotomy in my mind that, Jesus fixed the storm, but he put them right into another dilemma where the seas were so calm, they wouldn't have been able to move. Now, as Paul Harvey used to say, it would be nice to hear the rest of the story.
Yeah. And I didn't capture a picture, but fishing boats on the Sea of Galilee often would have a single sail to help with the propulsion. So your story's a fit.
It's interesting that they woke him up. We're going to drown, help. But then when he did it, then they're amazed. I wonder what they were expecting him to do, that they help, just drown with him, or bless them as they drowned, or what?
If you didn't think he could fix it, why would you wake him up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's do 28 to the end.
Jesus restores 2 demon-possessed men. When he arrived at the other side in the region of the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. "What do you want with us, Son of God?" they shouted. "Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" Some distance from them, a large herd of pigs was feeding. The demons begged Jesus, "If you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs." He said to them, "Go." So they came out and went into the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and died in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off, went into the town, and reported all this, including what had happened to the demon-possessed men. Then the whole town went out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region.
Okay, can we have the next slide? This little town that he's describing, or the region that he's describing, is problematic because there's several areas it could be that the names are similar. But let's look at the text a minute. Geographically, what are we going to need? It's got to be the other side of the lake from Capernaum, right? Yeah. What else? Steep bank. We got to have a steep bank. Okay. What else? Say again?
Somewhere you could raise pigs.
Yeah. Got to have a pig farming area. Yeah. It's got to be the U.S. equivalent of Arkansas. So here's the thing. It can't be a Jewish settlement. It's got to be a Gentile settlement. The Jews were not raising pigs, right? Yeah. So the Gentiles are raising pigs. So it's got to be an area where there's Gentiles. It's got to be primarily a Gentile city. It's got to be somewhere where there's a steep embankment. It's got to be on the east shore somewhere. Which puts us up at that northern one. Although a lot of commentators want us to get way down here in the south, it makes no sense to me. Because not only would he have had to leave the lake, that's a 13-mile walk down to the Gerasa that's the southernmost one. You're not going to be able to see the pigs run. Pigs don't run that far anyway. And they're not going to run all the way to the lake. So that northern one makes most sense to me. But when you get into the commentators, a lot of different opinions about it. The other thing, though, at the northern one, there are some cliffs there. Did I put another? Yeah, put the next slide up there. Okay, you see it over here on the far left. They did some archaeological excavation at the Gerasa site over here on it would be your far left. And they found some tombs there, and some caves and tombs. That seals the deal for me, because the story says there was these guys and they were living in the tombs. They were out there because they were demon possessed and their behavior was all out of whack. You know, you didn't want to have them in town. When I was growing up, we had a fella who had some mental illness. It was back in the day when the only treatment here in this area was Nampa State School and Hospital. And basically, if you went over there, they would really, all it was is they'd lock you up because there wasn't any treatment. You know, they just isolate you there. And any rate, he could be problematic, but the town tolerated him, and so he lived in a little shacky house on the edge of town. This is Wilder. And so, in some sense, this story makes sense to me. Jesus heals these guys. Then the next problem is, if Jesus healed these guys, why did the locals want to run him off? He's a pig killer. Okay, that's a possibility. What else? Why would they run him off? Feared him? He might fix them up? Yeah, some of us like our craziness. Okay, well, let's think about this in terms of Meridian. Let's say a guy showed up that knew how to heal mental illness in Meridian. Okay? Now, I did a little research on this. Do you know that there are 727 licensed professional counselors in the greater Meridian area? There are 200 psychologists. There are 350 marriage and family therapists. There's 69 psychiatrists. We have Intermountain Hospital, and we have a psych unit at St. Alphonsus Hospital. We've got a number of inpatient mental health substance abuse treatment centers, and we have all these substance abuse counselors. Now, if Jesus showed up and he could fix all those people, what would happen to There you go. Jesus.
He would go out the door.
Yeah. Jesus could ruin the economy of the Meridian area by totally eliminating this sector of our economy, couldn't he? Same with all the healing. Yeah. Yeah. And here's the deal. You know how many pig farms there are in Ada County? Less than 10. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? It's been a real pleasure to be with you all. I want to thank Mike for inviting me, and I really enjoy, frankly, preparing. Yeah, and I enjoy all you, whether I'm sitting up here or out with you all. And yeah. Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you. The Lord be gracious unto you. May the Lord grant you peace. Amen.